Hey, welcome at webinar 4 of H3 Society. It's the final webinar of the course, and this is where it really starts to count. So this final week of the course is about level 4 of the startup readiness level, and that's where you start to search for problem solution fit. And that's a super important stage for your startup. And that's going to be in the experiment for this week as well. So after last week, you've come up with a ton of possible ideas for solutions, and you're getting some feedback on those solutions from your customers. And that means that you should now have a decent handle on what your customers think about your solutions, and which ones they like, which ones they don't like. And that's what we're going to test more about this week. You really should know that this part, this level 4, is really a super important stage for your startup. All right, so experiment 4. So that's really where it all comes together for this course. That's where you're going to put all the pieces together and move towards problem solution fit. And that's like the super important part of this course. So what you're going to do is take the solution from last week that your customers resonate with the most, and you're going to build a prototype around that. You're going to build an experiment around that. With that prototype, you're going to do validation with customers, and you're also going to get out your calculator and you're going to do some business model math to get some numbers on paper and to see if your business model and your idea are actually financially viable. So that's all about experiment 4, and we're going to get back to it in a minute. Okay, so problem solution fit. So what does it really mean? Basically it means that your customers like your solution better than any other solution that they're using right now. So you achieve it when a large enough group of your customers is so in love with your solution, they don't want to stop using it anymore. Then if you can find a big enough proportion of the people that you talk to that say that they really want to keep your solution, keep using it, then you can definitely say that you've achieved problem solution fit.
So, before it was more about asking questions and getting the answers. In this module, we introduce an experiment format that helps you to be systematic. We won't go all over it, but there are a few important parts that we'd like to talk about with you today. Riskiest assumptions. Something people find difficult. Why the riskiest assumption? Ideas are cheap and acting on them is quite expensive, was a famous quote by Ash Maurya. Validating takes a lot of time, and you need a clear signal to come out of it. Riskiest assumption is a tool to create ruthless focus with your team on what you're validating. There can be only one riskiest assumption. That means you have to choose. So, make sure you only have that assumption in mind. Once it's validated, you can start looking at the rest. That's how you get a clear signal. Use the riskiest assumption finder from module 4. Check if what you come up with is in line with these rules of thumb for different startup levels. So, startup level 1. You are able to define a why and problem to solve that interests others. Number 2. You are able to find customers that experience the problem and care about it. Startup level 3. You are able to find an idea for a solution that resonates with customers. And startup level 4. Customers really prefer your solution over alternatives. Hypothesis. Another thing people find difficult. It's a vague word to many, and there are a lot of different ways it is being used. Basically, the function of a hypothesis in your experiment is to make it measurable. You'll gather data with your experiment, and your hypothesis is there for you to tell you how you should interpret that data and take action. The important thing to keep in mind for your hypothesis is that you should not be able to cheat with it. It's super easy to start validating, getting data, and when the responses are different, then you expect it to start fudging the result. Maybe that one person answer wasn't relevant. Let's take it out. That other person sort of gave the right answer, so let's count it anyways. That's super dangerous. So, how can you make your data mean something and you're not cheating yourself? 2 things. 1. Define your hypothesis. I mean, really define it. numbers and all, you know. And do that before you run the experiment, not afterwards. Number 2, make sure that people have to give a clear answer. Asking for some commitment really helps. For instance, sign up your email address. Only count people that do that as a result for your experiments. Doing this keeps it simple and clear.
Prototyping. Okay, so that's the last thing we'll talk about today in this webinar, prototyping. When you get your experiment together, then it's time to build a prototype. And the reason you do that is that you need something to show to your customers so that they can actually experience your product and give you more feedback. And that's a different kind of feedback than they would give when you were asking them questions. It's really next level kind of stuff, because they can feel and touch and use what your product is all about. When you're doing prototyping, there's one rule that you really should never forget. We got it from Mythbusters, and it's your prototype should be just good enough to survive the experiment. It should not be any better than that. If you make a prototype that's too strong, that's too well developed, that it's like almost like a real product, then you're actually wasting time. You're not building the product at this point. That's something you should really remember. You're building a prototype to test something about your product. It's really something you build only for the experiment. If you start confusing your experiment and your prototype with your actual product, then you'll probably end up thinking about too many details, wasting time, getting not the results that you need. And you should also remember that the prototype, it should not necessarily need to work. It should not be a real technological thing. It should be something that you can experience, but with the bare minimum that you need to do that. It could be on paper, it could be a digital prototype, doesn't matter. Just keep it very simple. Fake it before you make it, that's the golden rule. All right, so experiment 4. Once you got all of this set up, you got your experiment set up, your hypothesis, your riskiest assumption, and you got your prototype ready, then it's really time to start validating. And that's time to run the experiment. That's where you're going out on the street, finding some people that can help you validate. Once you've done that, you capture tons of data and you interpret the results, and you can see in module 4 how to do that in a better way. But then it's like the big moment, because you're going either to find out that your assumption is validated or it's invalidated. And when it's validated, then it's all smooth sailing. You go on and take your next riskiest assumption and prototype some more. But if it's invalidated, then you need to go back to the drawing board and you really need to pivot. And that's a tough moment, but it's also a very valuable moment. So really take the time to interpret your data and to really see if you're on the right track. Okay, so now get validating, get out there, and don't stop until you get problem solution fit. So cheers, this was the end of this webinar, and we hope to see your logbook soon and catch you in Slack. Cheers. Okay, so this is not just the end of the webinar, it's the end of the course. So for you guys, it means that you're really getting ready to go to the hackathon, and we really hope to see you there perform well. But for us, it means that we're going to get 2 beers and enjoy the sun. Cheers.